Can you hear me? Now I can hear you.
Okay, now I can hear you too.
Okay,
How you doing?
pretty good. Pretty good.
Everybody safe? Everybody safe?
Everybody's safe. Unfortunately, Bill had an accident. Big Bill had an accident a couple weeks ago. He broke his arm.
Oh no.
Yeah, pretty shattered it, pretty hot up in this area here.
Yes.
He's in rehab. He's in rehab right now because he has no motion. He can't do anything with his arm.
Ah, is he in New Jersey? Is he up here?
He's actually in New York.
Oh,
Next
New York.
by my sister-in-law. Yeah.
Okay.
So.
Okay.
The day before we were going on vacation.
He wasn't supposed to do that.
I know, no kidding.
Well,
Sarah,
will you say your question well for me, will you?
will do.
Thank you.
I'm not sure we have the right thing.
Yeah, right. This might be one of the other people joining with video.
Right.
I can hear you, Bob, but I can't see you.
Can you see it okay? Should I hit one?
Bacon.
Oh, in my book?
I don't want to.
Hello, Scott.
Hi, this is Hank Benesh here.
I'm sorry, who joined?
Hank Benesh.
Hey, Hank, how you doing, buddy?
Good, how are you?
Good.
That's Scott somebody.
Can you hear me, Scott?
Yep. Hey, how you guys doing?
Pretty good.
Hi, Doug.
Hey, everybody. And Sarah, I think you're on mute.
And so I don't make mistakes. I set it to automatically record. So we are recording now. Sarah, can you hear us?
Hey, Frank.
Oh,
Because you're in the meeting.
I see somebody with a phone number 8047.
Hello.
May I ask who you are?
Oh, it's Huntley. It's Joyce, but it's Huntley.
Hey, Joyce.
Hi. Would you come up over here? I'm doing it on the side, but my phone is to be plugged in. I don't know why. I don't think it actually goes.
This is coming on.
Has anyone heard anything from Bill?
No.
Well, this is gonna work. Hello? I've lost him. I can't. Just,
May I ask who's Bob? Chris, is that you?
I saw Chris come on, but he's muted. It looks up. There we go.
He comes in and on and off.
You have Bill's phone number by any chance?
No, yeah, his phone number? Yeah,
Yeah.
it's 383-3100.
Hey, Bill, it's Scott Badger. Okay, great. See you in a bit. Yep. Okay. On his way.
Again, if I could ask, who is Bob?
Hello, meeting.
Hello, Dick.
Hi.
Dick.
For whatever reason, I'm going to keep trying to do this on my iPad, but I haven't gotten anywhere in trying to do it. So anyway, I figured I'd call in. At least I have that. And then if I can get Zoom.com to recognize me, I will.
Okay, but we're still waiting for Bill.
Oh. Is he the host of the meeting?
No, I am.
Oh, okay. Dave. Uh-oh.
Okay, so that's another Chris. So may I ask, who is Chris? Who is logged into the system?
Chris McAleer. Who else?
Are you on a phone and on the audio? Because there's a
No,
Chris.
I got a question. How come we didn't have a direct link to get in? I thought we were going to do that from now on.
We did. It was in the email.
Well, I went back and looked at every one of your messages back to July, and there was not. I didn't see it. Not a direct link. Maybe I didn't get it. I had to put in the address. So I thought I was looking for a click on direct link.
Yep, I
It's
will.
in the 811 email.
Yeah, it was on 8/11.
Or 810, I'm sorry, 810.
I don't think I got it. I'm not sure, but I didn't see it.
The trouble with those darn things is it's hard to find them when you're looking for them.
Exactly.
I went to Jackson Lodge at Yahoo.
Did it?
At least on the one I got, that was the address. That was one of the CCs, or one of the two. Okay.
Sometimes it goes to Jackson Lodge at Hotmail, which I don't have. So sometimes that happens. But I didn't bother checking into junk. I'll check into that. Maybe it went there.
Okay, we have enough folks here to start. Okay.
Looks like it.
I only get 9 faces on my screen, so.
Yeah, I haven't gotten visuals yet.
Yeah, Dick is on the phone.
All right. So we can call the meeting to order.
One question before we begin. I see that Joyce Allen is on the call. Is Huntley also available for this call?
Actually, I'm the one that's on it. She was trying to get it on the iPad, so I'm just on the phone now.
Okay.
She couldn't get it.
Okay, got it. Thank you very much.
Okay, and so we will call roll right now to figure out who's here. Scott, I see Scott Badger.
I'm here.
I see.
Can you all hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Yay! Okay. Thank
Okay.
you.
Kathleen Dougherty, I can see you.
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, we're David Kimball.
Yes.
All right. Sarah Kimball.
I'm here, and you can hear me.
I can. Chris McAleer.
I'm here.
And I see. Uh-oh. Is that Dick iPad?
Yeah, now I'm on my iPad, I believe.
Yeah, we can see your thumb. Oh, no.
Yes.
Hi, gang.
All
I
right.
did.
Yeah, excellent. All right, I see Dick Bennett. So let's see. Blah, blah, blah. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That means all regular members are here. And Huntley, you're here as an alternate. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right, great. And for our record keeping, we would like to know who else is on the call, please, from the public. I see Frank Benish.
Jerry Dougherty, husband to Kathleen, is here.
Okay,
Hank Benesh.
that's a good one to know. Who else?
Chris Bridge.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
The Chris that's on the screen is Chris Bridge.
Okay, welcome, Chris.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
There's a Bob logged in. I don't know who that is.
Bob, you want to tell us who you are? Hey, and we've got a couple of telephones here. I'm not sure who those folks are.
Hank is one and Huntley is the other.
Okay. Bob, can you tell us who you are, Bob? I guess that's a no. I don't know how we control that. I think if somebody's on the phone who we don't know who it is, not good.
If they don't identify themselves, why don't you erase them?
I can remove them.
I think
would.
Yep, I think you need to do that. They're not willing to identify themselves.
Bob Eagle.
Bob Eagle.
Thank you. Appreciate that. I would ask that if we can, if you can put your microphone on mute if you're not talking, and then make sure you turn it back on when you want to have people hear you, if we can. David, you want to start us out on our agenda? You're on mute, David.
I know that. Okay. So first thing in order is to determine the voting members of the group.
It's all the regular members are here, and they will be the voting members.
Okay. Next is a review and approve the minutes from last month, July 9th, 2020 meeting. Any comments, corrections, or changes?
I'll move that they be accepted.
Second that.
I have a motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Do I have anybody opposed? And for those of you who have not been part of our meetings before, unless we have someone who indicates a negative, we will not individually call the roll. And if we have a negative, we will then call the roll. So I have that unanimously accepted. Next, Mr. David.
Next are the 2 short-term rental applications, which all of you should have been sent to that on Monday. The first one.
Okay, go with each one individually. Thank you.
The first one is Lisa and Alexander Payne. It's, I don't know where this address is. It's 30-2 High Pastures West.
That's Black Mountain.
Yep.
I don't think there's any, I don't know if there's anybody representing that group on the call.
Okay, any comments?
Are they advertising already?
I believe yes.
Yes.
Okay, we rejected 3 applications Tuesday at the select meeting. I think all 3 were, the building inspector already knew the proper egress was not available in the bedrooms. One had a bunk room in the basement that had neither a door or a window that would work as a egress. And I think another one had no egress in an upper bedroom. So I don't know if people are reading the application and understanding it, but we have to be a little careful. And also what we found was one application did not have a room and meals tax number, which I felt was necessary because once we give them a permit, they don't have to. What we were told is that Airbnb was taking care of that tax situation to the state. But if we give them a permit, they don't have to go through Airbnb. They can go through any venue they want, or they can direct advertise. So I think it is important that they get their room and meals tax number.
Yeah, Dick, we had that discussion when we were putting this together, and I think that was not completely vetted out in terms of what we might do on that. I don't disagree with what you're saying. I don't know that we absolutely said that they needed to do that if they were working through a second party for all of their activity.
Bill, do you remember whether something like Airbnb, would they have a single tax ID number for all properties, or would they still have an individual tax ID number for this particular property?
I believe it's a blanket for New Hampshire.
Okay.
And it was part of the conversation. They made a deal with the state on that.
Yeah.
That allowed them to do that.
I mean, I guess my feeling is, and maybe it's something we need to add to the ordinance, but I don't think that it's, I guess I agree with Dick. I don't think that it's onerous to require, that they file with the state in such a manner. even if they're running generally through Airbnb and Airbnb is taking care of it. But I think them getting a license, sort of serves the purpose of that license. And so I think it's appropriate that we require the license, whether or not they need it to work with Airbnb or whomever else they might be working with.
I thought if they signed with Airbnb, it was automatic that Airbnb would take care of that.
It is, but as Dick pointed out, if we go ahead and approve it, they can then go rent it outside of Airbnb and without that license.
Good point.
And I don't think requiring, the whole purpose of that license is to, ensure that the taxes are paid and things are tracked. And, if they're working through Airbnb, that's fine. But I guess I just don't think it's onerous for us to require that they still have that license. It seems like a small requirement given the nature of what we're allowing.
I got it. That makes sense.
The personal opinion.
Again, I don't believe the ordinance is clear, but it is clear that it says you must provide.
Yeah.
And so to the extent that you disallowed it, Dick, I think you're absolutely correct. And then the question is, if they give us a number and it doesn't happen to be their individual one, I'm not sure we're double checking back to find out if that is their license number. They're saying it is their license number.
Right.
Well, and perhaps they could give us the number from Airbnb that Airbnb is using to pay taxes for their rentals.
Exactly. If Airbnb is doing it, taking the taxes and paying them, they have to have a EIN for that particular taxpayer, so of some sort. So I think that we should require them to give us the tax number that that Airbnb is paying the taxes on. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I guess I'm not sure it's still, whether they should have their own tax number or not, so that, which would allow them then to rent outside of Airbnb.
Yeah, the requirement, if you have to have your own, is you have to do a quarterly reporting to the state.
Yeah.
And like any other business, you have to do a quarterly reporting of what business you've done and what collections you've done. And if it's going to be a zero number, I'm not sure how good that is. If you're saying, look, I don't ever collect anything through that, and then I've got the reporting responsibility forever and ever. I don't know. I understand your perspective, Dick, though.
But and your point about reporting for every 3 months, that's a good point. For the moment, I'd say at least some number, if not their own, then at least the one that Airbnb is reporting under.
Yeah.
Should we require them to update it? Because to Dick's point, say somebody comes in and says, I do it only through Airbnb, so they take care of it. 6 months later, they decide I'm going to go on my own. Do we care, or do we require them to come back and say, here is my new number?
I don't, David, I don't think they'd have a new number. I think that they would have a number that maybe Airbnb got for them, and I think we need to know that number. Whether they rent it through Airbnb or rent it themselves, I think they need to provide that number. And I think that the wrath of God goes into them when they think that they're going to report a false number. So I think it would work out if we require them to report the number that either they're using or Airbnb is using, and it should be the same number.
Okay, cool.
I think, though, the point that was being made was if they choose to stop using Airbnb and then use Pinkham, or they use their own personal thing, would we then require them to provide us with an updated number after the application has been, 2 years from now, 3 years from now? Would they be required to update the information? Right now, we have nothing.
I think they should always be required to keep us informed of what their EIN number is. And
So
I don't think, that's what I think, but every time they renew the application, don't they have to renew it? They would put down the same number.
But I think Chris, it sounds like you're saying that whether they rent through Airbnb or not, they still have their own specific number.
That's correct.
Where I think Bill is saying that Airbnb might have a blanket number for several properties.
I don't see how that can happen. I don't see how that could happen. They would have to have it under their name to get it credited.
All right, it sounds like we need to do a little homework maybe.
Yep.
And then it sounds like we need to maybe clean up the ordinance a little bit. When we take a look at what kinds of things we need to look at for this coming winter, and see if there's going to be other things. I know, Dick, you had some conversations with some folks, and there are other things that people might like to see that change from what we have as the current ordinance. And so I think we're probably going to have to take a look-see and see what things people are upset about currently, and see if any or all of them or some of them might be things we need to consider as cleanup. Because I didn't expect we were going to get it all 100% right the first time. I think we did a really good job, but getting everything the first time is probably not practical, especially when your first one's out of the gate.
Can I
We
speak,
did it.
Bill? Might clear this thing all up. I have this piece of paper from the State of New Hampshire Department of Revenue Administration. This has to do with one of our Airbnbs that we'll have to approve. And this is big letters. Meals and Rentals Tax Operators License. And this one is about an inch lettering. Expires 2021. So it expires every year, and there's a license number right underneath of it. So this implies that they have to apply for it every year. It isn't automatic.
Okay.
Okay?
So that sounds like we're going to need to request updated information even
Every
after
year.
someone's applied, yeah.
Dealing with the Meals and Rentals Tax Operators License.
Well, we should probably talk about a license renewal process every year also, because I think that's one of the checks that we can put in place. That way, if a property has been nothing but trouble, police have responded, whatever, we can say, look, you're a problem child, and we're going to have to do something about you.
Mm.
We have a lot of problem children here. I mean, we did a great job. We did a nice job of taking a non-conforming activity and making it legal in the rural residential area. I think we were thinking about homeowners who were renting their property, a second home. We weren't taking into consideration business people who are just doing this as a business. So it really is a different situation. We have real recourse to the people who are renting their own second home part-time when they're not using it. When people are buying these properties only to rent, that's where it seems to go to the next level, where we're getting the complaints to the police, noise in the neighborhoods, Yahoo, Animal House parties, and we've already had one septic failure from an overloaded house. So anyway, we did a good job of getting it started. I agree. And now we have to keep on top of it. And I think a yearly process for re-permitting might be appropriate. Thank you.
All
Makes
right.
sense.
See if that one flies. No. But yeah, no, I understand what you're saying for sure. Yeah.
There's just an idea. I mean, that's what we have to do is keep bringing out ideas.
Yep.
And we'll latch on to a few of them that will be appropriate for our needs.
Yep. Yeah. But I agree, there needs to be some kind of trigger point for some of the problem children. And we'll have to figure that out. Okay, so the applications we did receive, I believe this one that we're looking at does have a number, is that correct?
That is correct. That
Yes.
does have a number on the box.
And I didn't see anything on this one that suggested that there were issues. Anybody else come up with anything?
Nope, I didn't see anything either, other than that they slipped under the wire date-wise.
You mean in terms of getting that license and stuff, or what?
Yeah, well, the license is dated March 4th, and I think the date we set is March 12th, the town meeting date, so.
They're sharp guys.
I mean, it's possible that's a new license, I guess, and it's a renewal, but probably.
It might be that they had been renting and didn't have the license before and went, oh, this might be my advantage to have one.
Yeah, it's possible. Yeah, I didn't see anything.
That being the case.
Talking about, Scott?
Yeah, where are you seeing that?
Yes.
If you scroll all the way to the end, to the,
I thought we were only discussing two of them today.
we are. This is the Payne one that we started off with.
Right.
The date of application on mine says 7/17/20.
Yeah.
No, for the license.
To the license. The license is dated March 4th, and we set a deadline of March 12th to be grandfathered. So
For the R&M room and meals tax license. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Because that's the only proof of there being a short-term rental prior to the March 12th date. There's no receipts or any advertisement, copies of ads or anything like that.
I don't have that on any of the things that were forwarded to me about that date at all.
It's if you scroll down far enough.
It's one document. It's one document. So just keep scrolling down.
Yeah.
Is it like the page 5 on the scroll?
All right. Well, I'm not going to do it right now. I'll take your word
Okay.
for it.
So anyhow, it looks like they qualify with barreling.
All right.
I'll move that we approve that one.
Do I have a second?
I second it.
All in favor?
Yep.
Aye.
Aye.
Any objections? With no objections, I'm going to say it's a unanimous vote, not call roll. Second one.
Second one is the one this is for Kim Horrington.
Oregon.
This is on Thornhill Road and
Any discussion?
No, they show, so receipts from February.
and this is the current one. This was an existing one prior.
And they do have the license. Their license, it looks like they got. And did they put a number in? Because the document that they letter ID. Oh yeah, there is a number on the document. Okay. Yep. So I don't see anything.
Do I have a motion to accept this application?
I motion to accept the application.
I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing no opposed, I will not call the roll. David.
Okay, the next agenda item has to do with a driveway permit denial. And I think we have Frank here on the call with us.
Yeah, just to provide, Dick, you might have more background on this than I do, but just to let everyone know, I agreed to allow Frank to come on board here this evening on an informal basis, so as to not require a public hearing or notice to abutters. Because we're not at that point where we've received any kind of formal notification on this. However, having listened in on the Board of Selectmen's meeting where they basically said, Frank, you got to be talking to us at the planning board, I figured that it would be best, and you asked if you could, talk to us, and so we can get a sense of whether or not the planning board should or should not be involved, or to the extent it should be involved, and it should be involved, what that requires and what's necessary. I have no prejudice on this. I have no real understanding of what the planning board's requirement is on this, and so I'm here to listen as much as anything. I just don't know, and also maybe hopefully enough other members on the board have more understanding of this than I do, and we can have a good discussion and figure out what the heck the next steps are. So with that, Frank, I'm gonna let you start. Or Dick, do you want to start first? You can start first if you like.
No, I'm happy to listen also.
Okay, good. Thank you. Then I figured I'd give you the option because you guys shipped it over to us.
You're very fair.
Frank, please, if you could, help us walk through what's going on here. And just for information purposes, to know that I did receive a note from an attorney representing several potential abutters, was looking to understand whether this was a public hearing or not, and I said it was not, and they said that you're more than welcome to attend. This is a public meeting, but our comments would be limited, and again, it's an informal process, so let's make sure we keep it at that, and with that caveat, please, Frank, go ahead.
Thank you. Well, why don't I start off by, and by the way, I'm also a little bit uncertain of the process because I don't fully understand the select board's decision, but let me kind of run through what I do know, and then we can have that discussion. First, let's see. I want to share my screen if I can. Let's see. Share screen. Oh, you don't allow me to share screens. Is that intentional, David?
David would have to let you.
Here you can. I think you can now.
Okay.
You can see it in your glasses, Frank.
Yep, it's just reversed though.
I'm sorry. So you're looking at the original 1972 development map. To actually understand these issues, you first need to understand Dana Place Association. It's kind of a complicated structure. Dana Place Association is approximately 45 unit homeowners association consisting of about a dozen single family homes and 4 condo development. It does not include the Dana Place, but the former Dana Place Inn. And this is all really on all the property running from just north of the Blake House on Route 16 all the way up to what is known as the Wildcat Townhouses, and that also is not part of Dana Place development. The Homeowners Association owns about 10 parcels that are dedicated open space. And then, of course, each condo association has its own management and in each condo association owns common property in their names. So that kind of means if you're a condo owner, you're writing two dues checks each year, a check to Dana Place and a check to your condo association. I was going to go through my rationale for wanting to do this, but suffice to say, my current driveway I've had issues with my current driveway because of the grade. My son totaled a car on it 2 years ago. We've had to call wreckers many times. My wife slid off the end of the driveway in front of a school bus. All of this has happened with all-wheel and four-wheel drive vehicles with studded snow tires. Oil delivery trucks sometimes have difficulty. Guests without all-wheel drive vehicles sometimes can't make it to our house. And Eastern Green even has difficulty plowing. 10 years ago, they took out a section of a fence at the end of my driveway. Otherwise, their truck would have gone into 16. Even nearly the same thing happened 20 years ago when they took out a gate. So with that, I've tried to find a resolution for this. And the one that makes the most sense is I've now changed the screen, to a close-up. It's blinking on me. To a close-up of the property on the east side. That's the right side going north of Route 16. And in heavy black, you can see my current driveway and how it goes down to 16. I've obtained an easement from the Ellis River Village Association. That's the Ellis River Condo Association, over their land to a private road known as Beach Hill Road. My proposed route is in dashed lines on this map. Beach Hill Road also is on the property of the Ellis River Village Association. This path is one that stays at a constant elevation all the way to Beach Hill Road. And that's kind of why it's been chosen. It's also relatively flat and relatively low grade. At this point, I should point out that my homeowners association, the Dana Place Association, also has a say in this because they have to approve any trees being cut. They have looked at this and have suggested and recommended an alternative routing that I'm now using my mouse on my screen that runs from the top of my driveway right here and then continues on a path as my mouse is moving.
Yep.
Climbing about, oops, I didn't mean to do that, sorry. Climbing about 20 or 30 feet and ending right here. And the advantage of that routing in their mind is it is an existing road. The disadvantage is that road forms the southern boundary of a neighbor. This is the Lukowitz's property right here. And even though I've offered in the past, they've been unwilling to grant me an easement or even discuss what price would be appropriate. So I suspect my homeowners association is going to have to come up with what they think the next solution is. But I just wanted to fully disclose that's also in play here. And then what has happened is the select board has denied the permit. And I have their denial letter here. And they believe that the land, the Ellis River condo common land is committed to open space And more specifically, they believe I believe they believe that it is subject to a 1972 recorded document that is a certificate of declaration of dedication to open space by Pinkham Notch Corporation. What that document refers to is, again, in 1972, that document identified 6 parcels in the Day and Place development that are dedicated to open space, so that other parcels in the development can be developed at a density of more than 1 acre per living unit, which was the zoning at the time. Subsequently, in February 1973, there was another declaration that identified 3 additional parcels. All those parcels that were dedicated as dedicated open space have since been deeded to the Day and Place Association. The point, one point I'd like to make is that nowhere in those 2 declarations of open space is the Ellis River Condo Association land identified as open space. And in fact, that land is identified as some of the land that would be able to benefit from more intense development. And specifically, it allowed the development of 26 living units on the east side of Route 16, 20 of which would have been on lot sizes of less than 1 acre. And returning back to the first map you saw, what that's referring to all the small 1 acre and less lots that are over here. So not even being open space, it's actually benefiting from the declaration of open space to allow more intense development. And those declarations also allowed more intense development with condos down here that are now called the Mount Jefferson, some cluster homes over here this way. So both Ellis River and I dispute the Selectmen's contention that this is dedicated open space pursuant, and that 1972 agreement has any relevance at all. It is, part of the common property of Ellis River, and that's a 14-unit condo development now on about 17 acres of land. They did not have to be able to development. From what I've seen of the record, they did not need to have dedicated additional open space, dedicated open space in the context of those 1972 and 1973 agreements. Now, what I think the selectmen have done, or what I believe has happened, is in the 1982 subdivisions and condo development for Ellis River Village, and let me now move to a slightly different map. Excuse me. The response time when you're sharing is slow. I apologize. Come on here.
We can see it.
Well, no, that's unfortunately there's a second page here I'm trying to get to.
Oh.
Well, I'm going to stop sharing and then share again. Hang on for a second, please. How do I stop sharing? Okay, I'm going to stop sharing for a second. I'm going to switch to the page I want. Here we go. And I'm going to start sharing again. Share. I don't do Zoom enough to remember where the share button is.
Down at the bottom.
Yeah, I have to go back to my Zoom meeting. Sorry. Okay. Now, you should see on my screen Let me zoom out a little bit. Well, actually, I'm going to leave it here because this is part of the 1982 condo development. And you see the proposed buildings down here on the bottom right. I'm going to scroll up a little bit. And there's some notes here in the upper right. And this plat has the notation on it that says all common land of the condominium. In other words, that's the land not occupied by the buildings themselves, is open space intended as passive recreational use for all residents. That's roughly 16.5 acres of land. This is property still owned by Ellis River Association, and the condo developments documents allow Ellis River to further development that common land, say by adding a swimming pool, tennis courts, more parking lots, maybe a road for secondary egress. But unlike the 1973 addendum to the dedicated open space, there is no dedication of this land in that form. I think the legend, and that's important because it's that 1972 and 3 dedication of open space is the one that gives the planning board a role to play. Because that, as cited in the denial letter, that dedication of open space gives the planning board the ability to approve or disapprove any modification of open space or additional units being built. Now, that also raises the question what modification is, but.
Well, what's the total acreage again of the whole piece?
The total acreage of the Ellis River Condo Association land is about, I think, between 17 and 18 acres.
And so how much of that is not occupied by buildings?
About 1.5, somewhere in the neighborhood of 1.5.
1.5 acres is not
Yes.
occupied or is occupied?
Is occupied.
Okay.
Basically, it's all the common property of the condo association.
Right. I mean, at the time that this was done, there was no zoning, which is what is making this odd, right?
Well, the planning board has approved this stuff at that time, so.
What was it? Oh, okay, so maybe there was zoning then.
And I mean, these are all recorded documents. But what I'm leading to is what I think I don't know, but what I believe the selectmen may have done, and I know one of my neighbors has done, is see the word open space and immediately conflate that with the dedicated open space that was done in 72 and 73 and allowed all the condos at Dana Place to be built. Unfortunately, this legend is suitably vague. It doesn't really say what one can and can't do, or what the condo association can and can't do, and whether or not there's any role for the planning board. I think so.
Because our zoning ordinance was adopted first, was it amended? Oh, 71. Never mind. Yep, 71 was when it adopted.
And so, I mean, I think this has an approval on it. Let's see. Subdivision approval granted according to in June 1982 down here. You can see at the bottom.
Do we know what the requirement of open space was at that point? Right now it's 50%.
I have no idea. But I guess where I'm going with this is, even though there is no notation or further information on this plat as to what this open space means, I have extensively researched the Registry of Deeds, and there is no declaration or filing about this open space at the Registry of Deeds. And in fact, what's actually going on here, I believe, Let me move to that now. Hang on. Is to actually do the development. Let's go down here. To actually get this property done, or to have the developer do this the way he wanted. The developer by the name of Seneca Corporation at this point. They had to do a lot line adjustment. They wanted to do a lot line adjustment between the dedicated open space that the Dana Place Association owns, that is along the Route 16 boundary, and the Ellis River Condo Association land. They wanted to slightly change it. And to induce the association to agree to this, they promised that they would encumber the common land with the right of other lot owners at Dana Place to walk on that common land so long as they remain 75 feet away from the building. So, you know, the condo association hasn't, but the developer hasn't signed away any rights. The condo association remains in control of this land. They can do with it what they want. All that legend means, in my opinion, supported by this letter from, I think, also in 1982, that they've agreed to allow Dana Place property owners to walk on their land. And again, it has nothing to do with the dedicated open space, because if this is dedicated open space, then as cited in the selectmen's letter, there is a clause in that 1972 and 1973 dedication that says there should be no modification of the properties committed to open space hereunder without the prior appropriate authority from the Town of Jackson Planning Board. So I think I and the Ellis River Association are arguing that there's no role for the planning board to play here, because it's this 1972 document that gives them the role. And you know, if there is some document I've missed, and it is subject to that recorded document in 72, which I doubt, then I have some arguments that I probably not appropriate I could raise right now, but given that there's so many other private roads and driveways on the dedicated open space at Dana Place, subject to that 1972 and 73 recordings.
Again, I think you know, first step is to find out what the open space requirement was then, because that would seem to be what would give, if the planning board had any. This is brand new to me, and so I'm not sure how really to proceed, but at least knowing what the basis of that open space dedication was in 72, and I assumed that there was some open space requirement for this type of development at the time, would give us a starting point. As I said, today it's 50%.
Well,
I don't know if it's possible for, it sounds like Dick, Frank, you're saying that there is no piece of land that was ever recorded as open space.
Well, I'm saying there's no piece of land that was recorded as open space and incorporated into those 1972 and 73 documents.
Right.
But
if we were looking at the subdivision now, we would require some open, 50% at least open space, unless we were doing affordable, et cetera.
What all the notes, what's recorded and everything, it makes clear, it's somewhat clear to me that all this open space does is open space that then allows the developer at that time, Pinkham Notch Corporation, to build condos or other.
Well, no, our definition of open space is that it excludes buildings, roads, et cetera.
Well, if I could, this well, there's tons of roads on our open space, but this was all being done to get to that 1 acre per living unit metric. So across all of the Dana Place Association, there is 1 acre of land someplace for every living unit. Mm-hmm. And that's all they seem to be doing.
Mm-hmm. Well, all I was going to suggest is if there's a way, I don't know if it's possible, but, perhaps having, some specific area recorded as open space that, that doesn't include where you'd like to put your driveway, then that, I don't know if that's possible, but at least there would be open space according to today's regulations. And if it were somewhere that, allowed you to put your, the driveway in that you want, then that would serve everybody. Is there a different tax assessment according to open space, and how long has it been assessed as open space?
All the open space at Dana, that's owned by Dana Place Association, it is taxed at 0 on the theory that all of our individual assessments are increased by the amount of our proportional benefit of the common land.
So we would assume that the open space land owned by the Ellis River Village Association has also been taxed at $0.
Well, yes, and there's really only one legal parcel at Ellis River. It's roughly 17 acres, and even though there are 2 tax map locations, and those are not taxed, and but I believe, like my assessment for Dana, my benefit from that common land, that undivided interest in the common land. But I think the crux of this issue is whether or not the common land of the Ellis River Association is subject to this requirement from 1972 that requires the planning board to be involved. At least that's how I see it.
And I guess I'm saying that if the planning board were involved, we'd need to know the basis for that requirement so that we could determine whether or not what you're doing, is in conflict or not.
Well, but the 1972 document doesn't reference any of the land of the Ellis River Association. That's not common land, open space, according to the 1972 and 73 recorded documents.
But it's been taxed as open space since then?
It's one parcel that has 14 condo units on it. That's it. And I assume that's the way most condos are taxed.
I don't know. I mean, again, I guess I'd want to know what the requirements were when this all started. I don't know that would move us forward necessarily, but at least that we'd have some understanding of what was being thought then.
But in 72 or in 1982?
I guess it's this.
Well, I mean, I guess I'd step back and say, isn't it up to the selectmen or somebody to demonstrate by a document that the Ellis River Village Association land is dedicated open space?
I don't know.
Well, I think that's what the selectmen have done, or, I mean, I'm looking to the planning board and or the select board for guidance as to.
I mean, there's a document that labels the land as open space, right? Is that 1972 certificate of declaration? And again, that seems to say that land was recorded as open space towards some requirement, and knowing what that requirement is.
I'm sorry, which land
was that open space or common land? I think that my recollection, and maybe we've looked at too many different drawings, but I think that original 72 said common land, not necessarily open space.
I'm reading the letter from the Board of Selectmen saying document titled Certificate of Declaration of Dedication to Open Space by Pinkerton Knox Corporation. And
that
because that's what draws us in.
Yeah, but that certificate, that document, 72 and the similar one in 73, references only 10 parcels of land that are all currently owned by Dana Place Association.
Okay.
It has nothing, and there's no reference at all to the land on the east side of Route 16, other than that's some of the land that's because of the dedication of open space. In 1972, they were going to allow the developer to develop that land on the east side of Route 16 more densely than zoning would otherwise allow.
Okay.
And again, I think what's happened is the description of the Ellis River Condo Association common land in the 1982 plat as open space available for people to walk on is incorrectly conflating the Ellis River common land with this dedicated open space owned by Dana Place.
I mean, I think those two terms often get conflated or flip-flopped.
Yeah, I agree. But I showed you that letter that made clear that the only reason this common property of Ellis River was identified as open space was to encourage, to facilitate a boundary line adjustment between Dana Place Association and the Ellis River Condo Association land, so they could more compactly site their buildings.
I'm just not clear on what the planning board would be authorizing.
In what case? Right now?
Well, I know you want to put in a driveway, and this reason to be drawn in here because of this statement in that 72 declaration saying that without the prior appropriate authority from the Town of Jackson Planning Board or its successors. But are we authorizing a change in what was dedicated as open space? Or I'm not
No,
sure.
I don't think so. I'm arguing that 1972 document is irrelevant because the Ellis River Condo Association land is not, is not a dedicated open space pursuant to that agreement.
Okay.
There's nothing registered. There's nothing in OSIP that declares it as such.
Frank,
I'm sorry.
Frank, if I may speak, there in this certificate of declaration of open space by the Pinkham Mountain Corporation, the 72 document lists 5 different spaces and describes their location. Are you saying that the lot that you this map lot 11D is not one of the 5 that's listed in that 72 document? Is that what you're saying?
Let me pull up the 72 document.
Because I read through that 72 document, and it was very difficult for me to try to figure out what spaces they lots they were talking about. There was no plan attached.
I think I can help a little bit. Hang on, please. 45, excuse me. So I think I have that document now on my screen.
Yes, you do.
Okay. So after all the whereases, it lists, beginning in paragraph 1,
subdivision A, and then
yeah, and I can, if necessary, I can go on that map and point out every one of these. But most of these parcels, all these parcels are now owned by Dana Place Association, and I'm going through this quickly. Common Property D7 is some land in the name of Dana Place Association that's uphill for me. I can show it on the map in a second. And this 5th thing is the strip of land 25 feet wide bordering Route 16. That's what the boundary line adjustment was done on. And you know, those 6 or 7 identified open spaces were used to justify permitting residential use of, down here in yellow, 26 residences to be located on 26 lots in Area B. Area B, if I go back to this map, actually this map right here, Area B is all this land on the east side of Route 16, excluding D7, which is dedicated open space, and excluding this strip of land along here, including this common land, that is also dedicated open space. These 26 lots, 20 of which are under 1 acre, are what are among the benefited properties from that open space declaration. Now, all that's happened since then is you see this common land here. There's been a boundary adjustment between Dana Place, the owner of this common land, and Hinneker, who owned all this space, to basically move the common land over here to the right to facilitate the Ellis River condo buildings being located here. These are 3 existing lots. My lot is basically in this area now. I can move now to, I'll take this entire land area here and move to a updated plat that shows all in this area is Ellis River, including this area here. I'm lot 4. D7 is common land. Lot 2 is the Lukewitzes. And you know, again, to answer your question, my lot 4 was part of those, and the Ellis River land was part of those 26 units, 26 single-family house lots that then got reconfigured in 1982 into what is now a 14-unit condo development and 6 single-family house lots. And does that make any sense at all?
Yeah, hey, Frank.
Yes, but
I'm looking at this thing and you know, I'm looking at that little area that right next to the word common area that points down, and you're saying that that's actually the common area is that very narrow strip. It's not the larger parcel that you're talking about going across.
yes, if you read the meets and bounds, it's very clear that there's a 25-foot wide strip of common land
Yeah.
that was part of the dedicated open space.
Yep.
And note that that goes all the way down. And now in this new setup, you can see the results of the boundary line adjustment, where now it's a little bit easier for them to site their buildings over here on the bottom right.
If I may, if I can intercede here, if I would appreciate an opportunity. It sounds like we have a dispute of facts, if I'm understanding this correctly. You have a perception of what is going on that differs from somebody else's, and yours is based on reading these documents and these plats in a particular way, and obviously it's easy for someone to misread them if they're not familiar with all the documents that have created them and all the history that's part and parcel, if you'll excuse the expression, of how they got formed. To me, it seems that the planning board would get involved if it's truly a fact that this is a common land as determined as part of the condominium association's documents that have been filed. But if it's not, it's not. And your perspective is, and it seems from what you've presented, at least from what you see, and you've presented that this is not what you would call common land. But obviously somebody else looking at this has come up with a different view, looked at documents and perceived it differently, which, you know, that's easy to do, particularly if the fact that there's multiple iterations of what's going on here, and you know, we've been talking about this now for quite a bit, and it's still not absolutely clear to me. It's more clear to me than it was when I started. I read a lot of the material beforehand, and I felt the same way beforehand, that it's like, okay, we've got, I'm not sure. But if in the note I sent to you, if the information is as you present, I don't believe the planning board has a role. But if someone else looking at this believes that what you presented is inaccurate, they may feel that we ought to be involved. I'm not sure that the planning board is the functionary here, if you will, to settle a dispute of fact. And I'm not sure what is or who is, but I'm a little bit frustrated by the fact that we're here as a planning board and nothing so far seems to fit into our purview. Dick, can you help out on this in terms of what the Board of Selectmen might be doing, or how they might review this or re-review it?
Okay, the planning board would step in if there was any modification to the open space. So however that shakes out, that's why it comes to the planning board with the assumption that this parcel, which is, I think, 11D, I think Frank's parcel, this is on the tax cards, he's 11A. 11D is taxed as open space. It's not there's, like he said, there's no town tax on it. It's considered open space. So that's been going on for quite some time. As far as all the different permutations of the development up there, there's 5 folders down at the town office just about this. So, I mean, it's gone on for a long time. There's been many changes. So, how it shakes out, I'm not sure. From the best of my research, I never found any minutes from a meeting granting the easement across the 11D open space, but it may be there. 11D, I think, is open space, but maybe someplace deep in those documents, there's something else. It's going to take some research, but on the surface, for right now, it looks like 11D is open space, 11A is Frank's lot, and if there's any change of use in the open space, it would have to come to the planning board.
Right, it would come to the planning board as a new subdivision, right?
Yes, there's some alteration to the subdivision.
Right, it would be.
Okay, you've got the 1972 document there, and as Frank showed and can show on the plat map as to what space they were talking about. Now, it looks as though from what we have showing on the screen right now, that this plat, which is the one that was sent to us ahead of time, that is entirely different from the original, the document that the 72 declaration referred to. So it looks to me as though there has been modification of that open space, and according to the 72 document, that should have been approved by the planning board. And if that, what we are looking at with the 4 lots, that's subsequent to the 72 document, that the question is whether the 72 document does it even hold anymore, because you've had all of these changes. And you had the condos being built. I mean, if you look at the tax map now, it looks entirely different from the plat from the 72 plat versus the 82 plat or whatever. So the question is, on the 72 document, those spaces that were declared open space, they don't exist anymore.
Actually, Sarah, those spaces that were declared dedicated open space still exist, and they're all owned by the Day and Place Association.
Can you show that 72 plat again, Frank?
Yes, I'll show it to you in 2 parts. This is the southern portion.
Okay, and can you point out where your lot is on this?
My lot is now in this area, but below, downhill from D7.
Okay.
And Ellis River is mostly all this land on the right. They own Beach Hill Road, and they own the land, so most of the land right in here.
Yeah.
So is there a plat that was approved by the planning board that shows the Ellis River condo development? And
yes, there is. It's well, there's 4 or 5 plats, but let me excuse me for a second. Let me show this at a more typical site. There's The first page shows, I have to rotate this, excuse me. This is a detail of, this page 1 shows the original 1972 arrangements on that land. The second page, which you've seen before. Then the second page, let me rotate this, is a detail on the far right showing the proposed locations of the condo, and it actually shows the boundary adjustment done on the common land here owned by Dana Place. And here's, I think, here's the planning board approval. And then the third page is probably what you're looking for. It's mostly test pits, but let me, sorry for a second. This shows, stop moving it, excuse me. Well, I think it's mostly all on screen now. This shows lot 1, which is all this space here and this space here. This is pretty much as it exists now. That's the 17 acres and for the Ellis River Condo Association. And as I mentioned up here in the notes, everything, all the land other than the buildings is their common property. And they have, with this note, my understanding of the intent is to say that's open space to the extent that other lot owners of Dana Place can walk on their land. And my lot is now combined, these two lots combined. And this is what went through the planning board where's the date on this? June 30, 1982. If you look at this, there were some conditions to the approval. It mostly related to having a fire pond built and smoke detectors in the building. And the next time this shows up is, I'll take that back. This, let me zoom out now. This was filed. Sorry, I didn't mean to start that. This is a as-built plan showing the first building. That was also approved by the planning board, and I think that was probably 82 as well. Let's see, maybe early 83. So, but again, all those 1972 agreements deal with land other than what's here.
Yeah.
Here we go, October 1982. So I don't know if that answers your question, Sarah, or not.
Well, yes, because you have modifications that have happened since 72, and each one has been approved by the planning board.
Yes, I mean it's a subdivision revision. Yes.
Every time there was a change, it went before the planning board.
Well, in terms of lot sizes and condo development, yes, there've been a lot of.
They're just
there've been a lot of driveways and private roads built without going to the planning board, but because I mean, does the planning board have purview over driveways and changes to
No.
private roads?
No. Huh. All right. My sense of it is at this point is that this is not a planning board issue at this moment. It really has to do with a dispute of facts around the driveway permit being accepted, and whether or not the property over which it's being developed or agreed to fits within the ownership that has been described, or if it's something different. I don't know how you settle a dispute like that. But is that something that normally occurs with a selectman, Dick?
Well, we've tried to make a decision on our best knowledge. As I said, on the tax cards, it's open space. So
yeah, no, I hear you.
Open space, then if you were to modify that open space, use it for something else, the planning board would have to approve it.
Yeah.
If it's not open space or whatever, somebody's going to have to prove it or establish it or show the record of it. So I'd say that this has been a wonderful airing of the information. I still think that the planning board does have something to say about it if it gets to the point where the land use has been established. How that gets.
So, Bill, if I may, I think the planning board only comes into it if there's a subdivision application, and that would be the owner of the property that Frank wants to cross. You know, and so if that property owner wanted to rededicate the open space as part of a subdivision change,
yes,
that's how it would come by us. I don't think we would ever get involved if it's really Frank talking to the Board of Selectmen about an easement that Frank got separately. And I think I agree with Bill that this just isn't a planning board issue as such.
And I agree with Dick that if it is an open space issue and it's determined that that's the case, that yeah, someone would have to come back to us and talk to us about that.
But I think it would have to come through us as a subdivision application. That there's
yes. Yeah.
So if I could, does that mean you need to do a subdivision application to build a driveway?
No.
Yeah, we don't approve driveways.
Well,
that's the building.
No, I think what Scott's saying is that this isn't us unless there is some reason for us to get involved. And right now there's no reason for us to get involved.
Though the selectmen are saying there is a reason.
And they're saying that
if it's a change of use, if the land is open space and there is a change of use of that land, then I believe, as Scott said, there would have to be a new wording of the subdivision that open space accommodates.
It'd be a new subdivision. It'd be brought to us by that property owner, I think.
But I mean, well,
it's a little bit of catch-22 here. It's like if it's a one of these, it belongs to us. If it's not a one of these, it doesn't. And the question is, what is it?
I mean, if it's open space, it excludes driveways. If it's not open space, then Frank, you shouldn't have a problem with what you're trying to do. And it really comes down to whether or not it's actually open space.
Well, I think the only way it becomes open space is if the common property, those 15, 16 acres that are not built on, is indicated as belonging to or subject to those 1972 agreements. Right now, it's simply common property of the Ellis River Village, which they have agreed to allow other lot holders in Dana Place to walk on. It's just nothing more than that. So in the way you're using the term open space, it's not open space. And I think it's, I think it behooves the selectman or somebody else who claims it to be open space to come up with a document that clearly says it's open space subject to the kinds of restrictions that open space have.
Frank, who is the property deeded to it at this?
It's in the name of the Ellis River Village Associates. I'm sorry, Ellis River Village Association. They are the condo owners of Ellis River Condo.
And that's this space in dispute that we're talking about. It's actually their ownership. They own it.
They own it.
I think Frank, you're saying that it's you believe it to be common land as opposed to open space, correct?
Yes, it's if you read all the condo documents, it clearly describes this as common land. Common property. Everything that's doesn't have a building on it.
Frank, have you appealed to the association on this?
What the Ellis River Village Association are the ones that granted me the easement.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're happy with this. They had an annual meeting, I guess a year and a half ago, and voted to grant me the easement.
How much control did they have?
They own the property. They have the right to further develop that property. They can come to you and ask for an additional building. The condo development documents give them the right to develop that property. I'm not entirely sure what that means, but I imagine it could mean a swimming pool or a tennis court.
I always hate to mention this, but this may be something for a lawyer to get involved in.
Well,
I mean, the one other issue is if it's been taxed as open space and not as common land. I don't know where that plays in, but certainly someone has benefited from it being called open space if that's how it's been taxed.
Well, right now this parcel, the 17 acres, for reasons unclear to me, are shown as two different tax lots.
Mm-hmm.
Neither lot, it's 2 acres on one and 14 acres on the other. Neither parcel is being taxed. The only thing being taxed are the 14 condo units.
Okay.
And, from my experience with other condo associations here in town, they seem to be done the same way.
Yeah. In my, I have been involved with several condominiums, owned several condominiums, and in each case, the tax was on the units, not on the overall property. So again, I don't know. Maybe Jackson does things differently, or.
Okay, if it's not being taxed, what is it? It's not development land. I mean, you'd have to take it out of current use, some structure for the reason that it's not taxed.
Well, it's not being taxed. My understanding is it's.
So if you wanted to develop it, where does that come in? I mean, you can't have it for all these years with no tax and then say, okay, we want to build condominiums on it. And then that becomes taxable land. I don't know.
Well, if I can try to answer you, Dick, it's every condo owner has a undivided joint interest in the common land.
Right.
That's how it's defined. And each condo owner is being taxed for their condominium unit plus their undivided interest in the common land.
So if the common land is in current use, it's still being taxed, just at a lower rate.
Well,
If it's not taxed, I don't understand that.
What's happening is the town has the common land of the condominium association in a separate, as a tax parcel. And then each individual building unit as a separate tax parcel. The common land is not being taxed, but every individual unit is being taxed with their proportionate share of the common land.
Oh, well, then it's being taxed.
Yeah.
Being taxed is, yes, that's correct.
Yeah.
And it's common land because they had a more intense development that probably didn't hold up to current standards. So they said, okay, we will call this common land and have a more intense development for the condominiums. So I'm not sure where that becomes usable, but I'm sure, you know, with good lawyers, they can get almost anything done.
Well, the concept of is actually common property, not
Right.
common land. The common
Right.
property
or land. I'm sorry if I misspoke.
Well, no, but my point is, common property is something that's defined in the New Hampshire's Condominium Act as the undivided common property of the condominium.
Yep. Yeah, and Frank, I think the difference, and we do offer some definitions in our zoning ordinance, breaking down common land and open space, and I think that's where the confusion is relative to some of the definitions here that we're talking about. Your reference point to the condominium law as common property is accurate. As far as my understanding is, because we had to go through that same nonsense when I was in Glen when I was on the board there in the condo association. And so, yeah, there are different terms and different terminology that sound similar, but they're different. And so that's confusion. I can understand Dick's confusion.
So I guess, you know, where I'll leave this, and I guess it's your decision, is that the common property of the Ellis River Association is not open space in the sense of our zoning ordinance. It's simply their common property, which they have agreed to allow other residents of Dana Place to walk on. They, under their condominium bylaws, have the ability to grant an easement. And that's what, you know, the attorney relied on when he prepared the easement for me.
Yep.
So I agree with you. I think this is something, because it's not open space, or nobody's shown me a document that says it's an open space, that the selectmen are able to approve this as approve the driveway permit, and there's no role for the planning board.
In the documents that go with this, the condominium development that gets signed by the planning board, are documents then referring to the area as common property as opposed to open space?
All the condominium, the declaration of condominium, I think that's what you're referring to.
Yes.
Describes this as common property.
And that then, in our definitions in the zoning ordinance, has that as being a different animal than open space.
Right.
So if it is common property, then that is a change to the land that was indicated for the 72 document. So now in 82, with this condominium development, the planning board has approved of that, what was called open space in the 72 document is now the condominiums, and the condominium is the common property. And so the open space designation of 72 has been superseded by this document, the 82 document, which calls it, it designates it as common property. And so in that case, common property, it belongs to all of the owners of the condominiums, and they have indicated that they are willing to grant the easement. So it does not look to me as though this is a planning board. It has any, what the 72 document said for the planning board is needed for any changes. And that now has been superseded by the 82 documents and 82 approval, which calls it common property. So it looks to me as though it's not a planning board issue at all.
I agree with Sarah Esquire.
Thanks.
Yep.
And I can't believe that it is being taxed at current use. That doesn't sound like a current use property at all.
It's not being taxed.
This is not a tax. This is not a tax issue.
No, I understand that, Bill. I just mentioned that because it's not in current use as far as I can tell.
It's not current use.
It's not, and as common property, the way that works is just exactly as Frank described it. Is that the common property is taxed as part of the tax to the individual.
Right. So
property owner. So that's included in their tax. It is being taxed, but it's not being taxed separately.
No, but he said it was being taxed as if it was current use, and I just find that very strange.
No, I did not say that.
I did say that.
Okay, sorry.
Dick, we're going from planning board. I think we're looking at this and saying it doesn't belong to us.
Yep.
That the documents that we're looking at suggest that the document to which the selectman referenced is superseded. It's out of date relative to the action that was taken. And that there's a dispute of facts, obviously, and from what we see at least, and we're not lawyers and we're not, the be all and end all, but I think based on what we see, we don't perceive that it belongs to the planning board. It appears to be a driveway request based on an easement that has been granted by the property owner. And that is not something we look at or do.
I accept that.
That sounds like a good resolution. And I know that, Frank, the folks on the other end of this who are not happy with this are likely to have some conversation that they want to have with the selectmen about this. I'm not sure how that should work or what additional notice needs to occur. Perhaps in the minutes, will the minutes be sufficient as notice? Dick, what do you think?
As far as your decision here at the planning board, yes, it doesn't change the selectmen's denial of the permit, but it certainly helps it move along. We know what to look at and what to ask the lawyers to look at. So I don't think, as you said, we're not lawyers, so I don't think we make the final, but I think it really focuses where the dialogue will go.
Okay, great. So what do we need to do on this? Do we need to just leave it there as discussion? Do we need to vote on this, or what's the deal? What do you think?
I believe this was more of a hearing and not something, I don't think you have to vote to deny or approve or, I mean, we've had, I think, a really good outing of the facts as best we can figure them out. And I don't know what a vote would be on.
I don't either. So I'm because
I have nothing to do with it.
I'm asking because if somebody thinks we ought to, then I want to make that possible. My feeling is that the discussion then has come to a close, and it appears from best we can understand that we need to push back to the Board of Selectmen, and that the applicant needs to work further with them.
Yep.
And Frank, I guess that's what we would recommend to you. Let me thank everybody for all your time. Reminds me of the time I was on the planning board and the lengthy meetings. So again, thank you for your service to town.
Well, we're here to listen.
And talk.
Oh yeah, we love to talk.
And learn.
All right, if we can get back to a normal screen here, that would be great.
Yep.
I'm sorry, I'll stop swearing. I apologize.
Stop swearing. I mean sharing.
Sharing, yes.
That's right.
Or did I stop?
No, not yet.
Ah.
There, and I.
Thank you.
I will hang off now. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Frank.
Thank you, Frank. David.
The last thing on the agenda, which is something we talk about every meeting, is the capital improvement update. It is now 8:51. Do we want to move it again to the next meeting?
I really have nothing to add at this point. I'm about played out.
Okay. Dick and Kathleen, at some point, we would like to have a formal part of the conversation associated with the capital planning improvements, and do that. I agree with you. I think we're talked out for this evening. So maybe we can defer it again and do that. The other item that I wanted to mention is that we have had conversation with Peter Malia around short-term rentals and cluster development. And again, I would like to defer that to the next planning board meeting, because it's something that we do need to talk about. We talked about it back in May. And he has provided us with some guidelines that we can use, but he suggests that we're going to have to probably amend the ordinance in order to be clear about what our process is. So I'd like to open that as a discussion item. David, if you can include that for our next.
Will do.
Dick and Kathleen, would you be ready to do something on the capital improvements next time, or do you want to just push that off until October?
No, I have some pretty good information now. I could put it, I'm going to try to put it into the same format that it was in the back of the town report. And I wanted to ask the office if they have that format on the computer and can just plug in the
Okay. You think you might be ready for next meeting?
But I think it's time for me to really work hard on that.
All right, so we can put that on the agenda for next time.
Yeah.
Any other items anybody else has that they want to set on the agenda?
Yes, Bill, Jerry Doherty.
Yes.
You inadvertently passed by the public comment section, so if I could have less than 5 minutes to make a comment, it had nothing to do with the discussion.
We certainly have a section for that, and we seem to slip by that.
Yep.
So yes, you can be recognized, please, but I would appreciate if we can keep it to 5 minutes or less. Thank you.
It'll be less. Prior to 1829, the town of Jackson was known as the town of Adams. In 1829, it was changed to Jackson after the 7th president of the U.S., Andrew Jackson. And I think it's pretty well known now that Andrew Jackson, besides the Trail of Tears causing thousands of lives of Native Americans, and also as a slaveholder that in ads would give additional monies to the capture of the runaway slave for 100 lashes. I mean, so his racism is well documented. The White Mountain Mount Jackson is named after a fellow by the name of Charles Thomas Jackson. He was a physician, a scientist, and the mountain was named after him for his work in geology. He lived from 1805 to 1880. I'm going to, at the very least, have a petition warrant on the next town meeting to have the name of Jackson changed from Andrew Jackson to Charles Thomas Jackson. And I realize that the planning board has no jurisdiction in making that ruling, but I think that it would be good for at some time the planning board to discuss it and at least take a position on the warrant article that I will be offering. That's all I have.
Duly noted. I think what we can do is make sure that's highlighted in the minutes.
Will do.
And see if we can get some noise about that to help put a little wind in your sails if that's where you want to go, and see if there's some support for that for a warrant article.
And certainly the warrant article as a petition article could be considered. But I'm also going to be making the presentation to the selectmen. But that's all I have because I'm sure that Dick has his cap on.
Hey, Jerry.
Yes.
Vote for me and I'll take it up.
That's a given.
Oh boy!
Just let everybody know that the Zoom meeting will be ending.
That's my kind of thinking.
I do see somebody's hat being put on right now, and I don't know. It's kind of fuzzy with the Zoom picture here, but somebody's got their hat being put on, and they're suggesting that perhaps the meeting ought to be coming to a close. But I haven't heard a motion.
Oh my God! Thank God, Dick. Thank God you're here.
There you go.
I have a motion and a second.
My hurricane hat.
There we go.
Scott motioned. I second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Do I have any opposition to that? Hearing none, that's unanimous. Thank you all. Appreciate your attention.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bill.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you,
Good night.
David. You run a good show.